Now let's talk about the thing that's been hanging over his presidency for the last couple of weeks, Jeffrey Epstein. Our friends at CBS asked this question: should the DOJ release all of its information regarding the Epstein case? Boy, you want to talk about something that unites Americans? 89% believe that they should. Okay, 89%. Trump administration's handling of matters related to the Epstein case, only 8% of Democrats are satisfied, only 17% of independents are satisfied, and only 50% of Republicans are satisfied. The dissatisfaction numbers are 92% among Democrats, 83% among independents, and 49% among Republicans. So this thing is hanging over his head. The question is, and we see Donald Trump is trying anything he can to desperately try to put this, what I would say is put it, he's tried really hard to try to distract from it, right? What have we had here? We've tried the Tulsi Gabbard business with the Russian, with putting out cherry-picked Russian information. I mean, what is Tulsi Gabbard doing, by the way, on this whole Russia investigation? Just keep this in mind. She's doing exactly what she's accused the Obama administration of doing. She cherry picks information, ignores the facts on the ground, and then says, oh my gosh, look at this. She created a denial. I got to read this exact quote for you. This morning, on Sunday morning, she did an interview with Maria Bartiromo, who is a favorite of the MAGA world in that, because she accepts every conspiracy theory, rarely pushes back on anything anymore. And she said this on this show, which to me tells you that she is not intending to get the facts out here. The intelligence showed that, again, Russia did not have either the intent nor the capability to be able to impact the outcome of the United States election. So what she's doing with that statement's doing a lot of work there. What she's saying is they did not have the ability, the capability or intent to change votes in the election system. Well, that isn't what they were accused of doing, and that isn't what the Internet Research Agency got indicted for, right? They were essentially falsely getting involved in our election, buying these Facebook ads, false premises, using bots, using all sorts of. Now, there are plenty in MAGA world who think, hey, they just used political tools that happen in domestic campaigns, but a foreign adversary used them. Take WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is clearly a Russian intelligence operation, right? They stole and took John Podesta's emails, and then they curated them along and released them through WikiLeaks. I don't think it's been proven or not whether WikiLeaks knew it was dealing with stolen information from the Russian intelligence agencies or not. But it was a Russian operation, pure and simple. Did Hillary Clinton and her allies write those emails? Yes, they did. Doesn't make them any less factually correct. But this was a Russian operation. But again, they want to cherry pick the information. Let me read more of this one quote. There's no question in my mind that this intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered be published, which contained a manufactured intelligence document. Well, by definition, all intelligence documents are manufactured, but the way she phrased it sounds nefarious, right? It's a manufactured intelligence document, as opposed to what? A non-manufactured intelligence document? Okay. It's worse than even politicization of intelligence, she says. And then she claims, and this is one of the older tricks in the book when you're a conspiracy theorist. And next week, we will be releasing more detailed information on how exactly this took place. Folks, when somebody says they have all this information, but they are not ready to release it yet, well, we've got to wait next week. Remember Donald Trump during birtherism? You won't believe what my investigators are finding. He is correct. We would not believe what his investigators are finding because investigators, A, didn't find anything to be believing, or he didn't even have investigators doing anything. He just said so. And here she is taking up. And remember, just 6 months ago, there were lots of questions from Republicans and Democrats on whether Tulsi Gabbard herself could be trusted with intelligence information. And here she is, regardless of what you look. The Russia conversation has been as follows. It's an uninvestigated, part of this is still uninvestigated. But the part where it was investigated, collusion's never been proven. But what has been proven was Russian interference. Hard stop. That's never been in dispute. Marco Rubio helped lead an intelligence committee inquiry in the Senate that did not dispute Russia's intent. I'm old enough to remember when Marco Rubio refused to talk about certain stolen pieces of information because he said, hey, this was a foreign adversary who leaked this information in order to weaponize it in our politics. That's not today's Marco Rubio. That was Marco Rubio back when he thought Donald Trump was a problem for the Republican Party, and conservatism as a whole. So all the different ways that Donald Trump has tried to distract. They tried this. By the way, it hasn't taken hold. I've noticed a lot of people have noticed, oh, they're playing the same game that they played with Epstein. They're sort of teasing that there might be information when they really don't have any smoking gun to deliver. And then when they fail to deliver, there's going to be a question, are you now part of the deep state, right? That's what's happened there. But what else is Donald Trump tried the whole cane sugar thing and with Coca-Cola? You know, it's gotten a little sidebar of attention this morning, but it hasn't gotten much more than that. And again, I am disappointed in the amount of reporting about this idea of Coca-Cola, whether they could change over from corn syrup to pure cane sugar, and ignoring the cost and how the sugar industry is regulated in this country. All of it, by the way, has to do with Cuba policy, but I'm not going to go down that. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But essentially, our sugar industry in this country gets special disposition and special treatment because of making sure that Cuba's sugar industry never gets traction anywhere. And then the latest is he's trying to whip up interest in getting the Washington Commanders and the Cleveland Guardians to change their names back to names that many Native American tribes thought were racist ways to do it. In the Cleveland baseball franchise, it was the mascot himself. Okay, with the Washington football team, it was the name itself. The logo was honorific, right? The Washington football team's logo, okay, depicting a Native American warrior, is very similar to what's on the old Buffalo nickel. It's an honorific. And in fact, my friend Tony Kornheiser once wondered, had early on, they kept the logo, but changed their names to the Washington Americans, essentially the Washington Native Americans, but you just dropped the words Native, the Washington Americans, and kept the logo, whether that would have satisfied a lot of people on that front. But why is Donald Trump throwing this, right? This is all about him. This is distraction spaghetti at the wall. Maybe this will, all he cares about is distracting his MAGA base about this. And the irony is that the MAGA base is all divided on this, in part because there's all these bots that many of these tech companies allow to have happen. MAGA world has a ton of bots, and the bots are confused. Wait a minute, we're not supposed to talk about Epstein, or we are, and there's been lots of confusion, which has only, I think, spun up MAGA world even more. So he's still got a ways to go, but do realize the fascinating sleight of hand that he pulled when he told his Attorney General Pam Bondi to release more of the grand jury information. Why should I emphasize grand jury information? Well, here's why. Because he's not a part of the grand jury investigation. Any of that stuff's not going to include Trump at all. Trump's not a part of it. That's one. Two, it's unlikely the courts are going to let any of that out. That stuff, I mean, you've got to get victim permission. You've got all sorts of things. That stuff will get redacted. That stuff's not going to. It sounded like he was calling for the release of really sensitive information, but what he really was doing was essentially buying time, because he knows that information isn't likely to be released at all. Anything. I do want, if you really want to get your fix of more Epstein, I want you to go take a look at an interview my old friend Jonathan Alter. His Substack is called Old Goats. It's very cute. I like it. As you know, Charlotte Alter's daughter's a reporter at the New York Times. Jonathan Alter's been a longtime reporter, now biographer. Most recently wrote a book on Jimmy Carter. It's a terrific book on Jimmy Carter. But he had this interesting interview with Michael Wolff. Michael Wolff, who's written a couple of books about the Trump administration. And look, Michael Wolff has a lot of detractors left and right. More on sometimes how he goes about sourcing, who's an anonymous source, who isn't. So it's usually more in tactics. But his information is usually much closer to the truth than a lot of folks want to admit. In this Q&A with him, I just want to pass on this one part. So Jonathan Alter, because Michael Wolff has hundreds of hours of conversations with Jeffrey Epstein over the last 10 years. He was apparently doing a book. In fact, he's trying to do a book and he can't get a publisher to bite, which is kind of surprising but then again, he explains in this interview why it isn't. I'll let you guys decide. Yes, I'm trying to interview him, and if we can get him on the podcast, we will. But I want to talk about this one thing here because it's a fascinating plot twist. If this is true, and Michael Wolff arguably has done as much reporting on this front as anybody out there. So Jonathan Alter asked him the following question: why did the friendship between Trump and Epstein end? At one point, they were best friends, but this friendship ended in 2004 before, for what it's worth, all of the investigations into Epstein began. And here's Michael Wolff's answer. It ended over real estate, Wolff says. In 2004, Epstein believed he was the high bidder on a Palm Beach house at $36 million and took Trump to see it in order to give him advice on moving the swimming pool. Trump then promptly went around his back and outbid him at $40 million, though he likely didn't have $40 million. This is the same property that he would then flip to a Russian oligarch for nearly twice that 4 years later in 2008, but I digress. Epstein believed Trump was fronting for someone and threatened to sue him. Epstein believed Trump then informed the police in Palm Beach that he had had a never-ending stream of underage girls in and out of his house there, and thus began his long years of legal peril. That's right. Michael Wolff believes, or Jeffrey Epstein believes, because he's interviewed Jeffrey Epstein. He's hundreds of hours of conversations with him on tape. Jeffrey Epstein believes that Donald Trump is the one that turned him in on the whole issue of underage girls, that it was Donald Trump. How about that for a crazy plot twist?